Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. In this video I'm going to take a look at the free decks that are being offered to new players when they graduate from the new player ranks, and for returning players if they have been away from Hearthstone for 4 months and they log in and they get offered a new deck. So you get to choose from a deck for 9 classes, all except for Demon Hunter, but there are some major differences between the decks, so which one should you choose? The bad news right at the start: none of these decks include any cards from Scholomance Academy. They were last updated just before the new expansion came, and they didn't include any new expansion cards. And Scholomance Academy is an extremely high power level expansion, so you have all been bamboozled. Because the new player decks previously, there were at least 2, maybe 3, maybe even 4 decks that the experienced player could play all the way to Legend straight out of the box. And right now, there aren't any. Maybe one with some caveats. So yeah, and some of these decks are not even good enough to get you out of bronze. That is how bad they are at the moment. However, I'm here to show you what you can get from the decks, because all of the cards that you get from the decks are yours to keep. So you can get some pieces that you can build your own decks around. You might be able to upgrade some of these decks, and a couple of them are pretty close to being playable. This one, however, is not one of those. This is the Druid deck, and the Druid deck is a big Druid deck, and big Druid is abysmal. You have no hope whatsoever to succeed with this deck in any way. The best parts about this deck are the couple of cards that you get from it. You get Alexstrasza, and Alexstrasza is seeing a play in multiple decks. You get Ysera. Ysera is seeing play in very many Druid decks at the moment. And you get Winged Guardian, which is from the first wing of Galagon's Awakening Adventure, so if you don't have that adventure and you want to play some big Druid decks, then Winged Guardian would be an excellent card to get. The downside is that those decks are right now pretty bad, so you can't actually use the card for anything. So basically what you get is you get Aether Unleashed and you get Alexstrasza, so you could build some sort of Malygos Druid deck, for example. You can use these cards in Guardian Druid decks, in the Ysera, and you can use Alexstrasza in various decks like Galagon Warlocks and Malygos Druids, but you have to redo the deck a lot in order for it to be worth anything, and yeah, not a great choice overall. Then there is the Highlander Hunter deck, and Highlander Hunter is an archetype that is still alive and kicking in Scholomance Academy, although the general way to build the deck has changed a little bit. The current Highlander Hunter decks often top out at Dinotamer Bran, then they use the new legendary Lawkeeper Paul Kelt so that they can reorder their deck and they ensure that they draw Bran on time, so that they are just much more aggressive than this list is. However, this list does give you the Highlander synergy cards. Zephyrus the Great is a neutral Highlander synergy card. Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, another neutral, both of them legendaries. They're used in Highlander Mages, they're used in Highlander Hunters, they're used in Highlander Priest decks. You can build a lot of different Highlander decks with these tools. And you get Dinotamer Bran, which is really key card for Highlander Hunter. This deck is probably something that can be upgraded. There are lots of bad cards in this one, like the Henchkill Hogsteed and the Marked Shot and Unleash the Beast, so this deck in its current form just doesn't respond to the meta at all, and it cannot succeed, but there might even be some relatively cheap ways to upgrade this to a bit more aggressive version that might have hope. That's something I'll probably try to take a deeper look into at some point. And as an upside, this does give you these valuable neutral legendary cards. So if you're going to build some Highlander decks, which are typically quite expensive, you can ease that a little bit by getting the 2 neutral legendary cards for all of those decks from this deck. Then there is the Mage deck, and the Mage deck is a no minion mage, spell mage. This sort of mage deck that doesn't run any minions, so that it runs some synergy cards like Apex's Blast, deal 5 damage if your deck has no minions, summon a random 5 cost minion. The overall value of this Mage deck, if you think about the value of the individual cards, is by far the lowest of any of the decks. You only get 1 legendary card. Although that 1 legendary card, Evocation, is better now than it was during Ashes of Outland. It is used in a lot of these Cyclone Mage style decks at the moment, and it's a staple in this sort of no minion mage deck. In its current form, this mage deck is also not playable, but it's not far if you have the amazing Reno, which is from Galagon's Awakening Adventure, so you have to buy that adventure to get it. And then if you have a rolling Fireball, just with those 2 cards, this would already become an okay deck. A deck that is playable to Legend, even though it's not a tier 1 deck, more like tier 2 or tier 3. For anything else, you mainly get just that evocation as a building tool. Then there's the Paladin deck, and Libram Paladin, this sort of Libram Pure Paladin, is an archetype that is one of the current best decks, so it's doing really well. But this one doesn't include any of the new cards, and that archetype got a lot of new cards in Scholomance Academy. So this deck is not that great. This is one of the best decks of these out of the box. You can probably reach even up to Diamond maybe with this, but it is simply subpar, and especially its mirror performance is abysmal because the others have those new cards that are really good. You do get Shotput from this deck, which is from Galagon's Awakening Adventure, which is used in all of the current Libram Pure Paladin decks. So if you want to play Paladin and you're not planning to buy the adventure, then getting Shotput is a major plus. You also get the full Libram package, and you get Lady Liadrin. So comparing to the current decks, you get those adventure cards, you get Liadrin, which is a legendary, you get 2 Librams of Hope, 2 Lightforce Crusaders, so you get 4 epic cards that see play. Tyrion Fordring doesn't see that much play right now, but you might use it. So if you add some of the current staples like First Day of School, which is a common card, Goody Two Shields, which is a rare card, already those additions might make this a semi-playable deck. Then there's also a couple of legendary cards that are being played in current Libram Paladin decks, so, which would make it a little bit more expensive to fully upgrade this, but this one has some potential already. The Priest deck is a Resurrect Priest, and that's an archetype that doesn't see any play at the moment, and this deck will truly struggle. It can probably get you out of bronze fairly easily. These sort of new players will probably just face a frustrating wall of Khartuk defenders and convincing infiltrators when playing against this deck, but once you get a little bit higher up, this deck just doesn't deliver the punch that is needed. It's also not easy to upgrade into anything because this archetype doesn't see any play. This deck has all the good stuff that is used in this archetype, or that has been used in this archetype when it was a meta player, Katrina Muerte, Plague of Death, Psychopomp. But when you compare this to the current Priest decks, the only valuable piece that you get is 1 copy of Plague of Death, which is an epic. So it's really hard to turn this into a current modern Priest deck. And how the mighty have fallen. Galagrond Rogue, this deck used to be fully legend capable during Ashes of Outland, a phenomenal deck. But right now every rogue deck is being super aggressive. Stealth Rogue, Aggro Rogue, Weapon Rogue. Everything is just coming at your face all the time and try to end the game immediately. And this sort of deck doesn't have the tools to defend against that, so you're going to lose to other rogue decks a lot. This has some sweet legendary cards. There's Heistbaron Togwaggle, there's Kronk's Dragonhoof, there's Flick's Skyship. So Kronk's is used in the few Galagrond decks that are still around, alright, it's still a fine card. Flick's Skyship is actually seeing play in many of these aggressive rogue decks. It's the most expensive card typically in those decks. Hard removal piece, it's a okay piece. It's not running all of them, but it's still fine. Heistbaron, kind of out of favor, too slow for the current meta. So while this rogue deck offers you some valuable pieces and it offers you cards that are in theory good, then the meta is not quite there right now for this one. Then there is this Shaman deck. You also get Kronk's Dragonhoof from this, you get Lurker Below, which is possibly the best Shaman card at the moment. However, Shaman is doing miserably, and I looked at the statistics of this deck in particular, and this deck probably can't even get you out of bronze. This is performance-wise by far the worst deck that you can get, and there's nothing that you can upgrade it to. Shaman is dead, and this deck is very, very dead. The Warlock deck is a Galagrond Zoo, and no one plays Galagrond Zoo right now. People are playing Galagrond Warlock. They're playing Galagrond Warlock with Soul Fragments and Alexstrasza, and then the Galagrond package, this sort of mid-range type, control type deck. And you do get some pieces for it. You get like Kronk's Dragonhoof, the neutral legendary card. You get Veiled Worshippers, epic synergy card. So there are some pieces here to build a Galagrond Warlock, although it would be a much slower deck. But other than that, the deck doesn't offer very much. Sea Giants don't really see play right now. They have seen play in the past, it's not a bad card, but the meta is just not right for it. And Dark Pharaoh Tekkan. has been used in the Galagon Warlock decks, has been used in Zoo decks, but right now it is not used in either really. So while this deck does offer you some bits and pieces to build Warlock decks with, it is not a great option right now. Then there is the Warrior deck, and this is actually the best performing deck in this list. It is the only deck out of all of these that has been able to hit 50% win rate in Diamond. All of the others are far below that. This one, Aggression, works. This is a pure aggro deck. It goes face some more. Pow, pow, pow. That's a good strategy. And it also gives you some useful pieces, because the main warrior decks that are being played right now, they are bomb warriors, but they still use Risky Skipper and they use weapons. So they use Ankar to tutor for those Risky Skippers. Skippers from Galagon's Awakening Adventure though, so you'd have to get that one. And then they use Captain Greenskin a lot, so you actually get 2 useful legendary cards for the current meta warrior decks. Live Lance used to see play in Ashes of Outland, but it doesn't see any play anymore. So you can play this as a face deck, and if you're willing to invest in a little bit more legendary and epic cards, this could be turned also into a bomb warrior deck, and you get some discounts for that because you get a couple of legendary cards that are part of that deck. Still, it is a little bit expensive to upgrade this, but out of the box this is the only at least somewhat competitive deck out of the whole bunch of decks right now in Scholomance Academy. To sum all of this up, you have been bamboozled. You think you're getting a free deck, but that deck... No, Scholomance Academy power creeped the game really hard, and your deck just isn't worth much anymore. It will be a struggle to hit legend with any of these decks. The warrior deck is the strongest one. If you just want to pick a deck and play, warrior deck can get you somewhere. Paladin deck, there are potential ways to upgrade it. It will cost a couple of legendaries typically to upgrade stuff, but Paladin has a clear path to be upgraded into a playable deck. Mage deck, okay, with Amazing Reno and Rolling Fireball you would have a tier 2, tier 3 deck with those upgrades, but the Mage deck on the other hand also offers you the least by far. And Hunter currently gives you the best pieces, because it gives you those Highlander neutral legendary cards, so they have the most uses across various classes, but the Hunter deck right now as it is not competitive. I see some hope that maybe an upgrade path for that one can be found. I'm going to take a look at that later. Overall, the free decks are now much worse than they were during Ashes of Outland, because the new expansion power creeped the game so hard. Even so, I hope this information can help you decide which one to choose and maybe find some paths that you can use to build actually competitive decks. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more.